Kawhi gets his trade. But it's not to Los Angeles. And pay disparity between men and women in athletics. Is it fair? Is it not? Cole Sportz presents On the Daily. Well, thank you for joining me, whether you're viewing me on iPad, iPhone, Android, smartphone, TV, computer, or any other viewing apparatus. Cole Johnson here on The Daily's on tap, and it's time to deliver to you the topic of the day, please. So there has been talks about Kawhi being traded for months. And finally it has happened. And for those who have not understood what has happened, well, what took place is that Kawhi Leonard of the San Antonio Spurs is now formerly of the San Antonio Spurs because they, along with Danny Green, is headed up north to Toronto in exchange for DeMar DeRozen, another player, and a protected 2019 first round draft pick. So the Spurs do get something in return for losing Kawhi, and they got a star player to boot. Now, I was thinking that they were probably looking for youth and picks. Well, they ended up getting probably a little bit of youth, and they got a pick, but they got a really good star. Maybe not to the level of what Kawhi was allegedly ascending to be, but DeRozan, I mean, he was considered the number one guy on the Raptors. He will be the number one guy on the Spurs. We shall see how that goes. But DeRozan was hurt. He was hurt that he was dealt because he really, really was loyal to Toronto and loyal to the Raptors. But business is business, right? As for Leonard, he got his way and he got his trade, but he didn't get his way in his trade where? And that's the thing about trades. And I know some are probably going to say, well, Kawhi said he wanted to go to LA. Why didn't he trade him to LA? Well, he got his wish. He got traded. Where a team trades you don't have control over unless you have veto power on that trade. And I don't think Kawhi had that. Or if he did, he vetoed it and probably said, I don't care where you deal me. I just don't want to play in San Antonio. Be that as it may, what has transpired is something that I believe in my heart of hearts is what Kawhi wanted ultimately. He just wanted to get out of San Antonio. He would find his way to LA, whether it's with the Lakers or the Clippers or in California, but he could drive to LA. To him, I just think it was best for him to get out of San Antonio. The way he did it, you'll have to tune into IGTV as to what I think about that. And that is the topic of the day. When I come back, women and men, pay disparity reigns supreme in athletics. A Ponford review is next. Coming up on tomorrow's On the Daily, we will, of course, have the topic of the day. And we will also award the Dolt of the Week. That's tomorrow, though. For today, we were talking about basketball earlier. We will continue to talk about basketball and other sports. There was a WNBA player not the first actually, and not the first this year, that has raised issues about pay disparity between men and women, definitely in the NBA. And I want to talk about what I believe is true and what I believe is also missing in this conversation, and upon further review. A'ja Wilson. That's A''J-A Wilson. WNBA player. Earlier this month, vocalized when LeBron James received his 4-year, $154 million contract. Some salty feelings would be a little harsh, but some concerned feelings. And she talked about how it's one thing to see a guy draw that type of money. But here we are talking about the WNBA players, and we are struggling to get a contract for $1 million. A guy who is getting $150 million over 4 years. If we get $1 million over 4 years, that is the achievement. And I believe that is what A'ja Wilson was talking about. And before I even continue on with this topic, I believe that if a man and a woman is doing the same job, they should get paid the same amount of money. Period. I don't care who you are. If they're doing the same job, they should get paid the same money. If you're going to pay a guy $45,000 to do ditch digging, if the woman's doing it, you got to pay her $45,000 too. Little. Same job. If it's a man or woman, should get paid the same money. Except when revenue is dependent upon audience participation. In revenue in that sense, in that vein. And why do I say that? The reason why the male athletes in football and baseball and basketball, most likely and chiefly, and even soccer across the pond, the reason why they are getting a whole ton of money is because you got a lot of sponsors throwing a horde of money toward the leagues. Why it does not work with a WNBA is because, quite frankly, their big brother is helping fund the WNBA too. And as much as I would love Sue Bird and Della Dawn and Brittany Griner to get those big type of contracts, if they were to play 82 games, if they were to have sold out arenas, then I could see why they could be justified being paid that. That's just straight money. That's just straight money. Now, the percentage they get, and she talked about that. She said the NBA players get 50%, but we get 20% of the overall pie of what the league earns. That is an issue you have to take up with your labor union. When they collectively bargain with the owners of the team and the commissioner, they come up with what is fair for all parties involved. And unfortunately, that labor union of the WNBA felt it was fair for the players to only get, and I think it's not 20, but it's 30, but they thought it was fair for the players to get under 50% of the total revenue of the league. Probably in large part because they wanted to build up the league and have it make money so that it can in turn later on down the road, when you were having teams and players who got better, who drew the interest of the fan outside of the product, then it could justify paying them more money and give them more of the pie, the revenue pie. That is an issue that I see that The WNBA players need to take up with whoever is representing them. There is where I see a problem. And I also see a problem here too. I was looking at CNN, and I mentioned this Monday when they were talking about how reporters in Russia, female reporters in Russia, were getting mistreated, and they were getting mistreated there. They were talking about pay disparity, where Serena Williams, I believe in 2017, earned $17 million versus Roger Federer, who earned 73. Danica Patrick, I think, earned 10, and I forget the driver, but the male driver, but he earned, I think, 30. Those instances, even though I do have to say in tennis, women play at most 3 sets, men play at least 3 sets. I can see the pay disparity being in the favor of guys just because they play longer. However, especially in this country, more people tune in to tennis because of what the women do versus what the men do. So I would think Serena would have to get paid more, in my estimation and purview. The disparity that I see that's ridiculous is in soccer. Quickly, I want you to name a male soccer player in the United States. For the exception of those who follow the soccer league here and who follow U.S. soccer, you won't know that name. However, you do know, in the past, Brandi Chastain, Mia Hamm, Julia Foudy, and currently Hope Solo. You know these names because if they are not controversial, as Hope Solo has been, they have earned perennial championship trophies, if not world championships, gold medals in Olympiad after Olympiad after Olympiad. The women are outclassing the men by a country mile. So they should get paid more than the men because, quite frankly, we only know of soccer because of the women. And correct me if I'm wrong, when was the last time the men outside of World Cup play had a soccer match aired on national TV? Can't name me that. But I can name you the time when the women had that. So the women should get paid more than the men in soccer. And not because they're female. Because they have captured the interest of the American a whole lot more than the males have. Now, do I think that the advertisers, shade a little bit toward women athletics? Yeah, I do think that. And I say that with soccer because that's where the advertising knowledge should be poured into. It should be poured into the women and not so much to the men. It should. Because the women, they just have been historically and perennially good. Whereas the men have historically and perennially been horrible compared to gold medal, gold medal, gold medal with the women. So do I see it changing? I think I do, because you're having more women tell stories of athletes. You now have more women who are being the storytellers as athletes. You have more women who want to actually be football players and not just kickers, who want to be baseball players, who want to be basketball players and play against the men. You're having more of these types of conversations happen. So why are we slow to the gun when it comes to paying these women what they deserve? I say it's time that we do that. 21st century, man, it's time for us to give our sisters what they financially deserve. If you happen to like this episode or any other episode you have seen thus far, go ahead, click it. Click that button and ring that bell. Get those notifications ready and subscribe to Cole Sportz on the daily. Monday through Saturday, one of these episodes is yours. And speaking of episodes that are yours, it's not really episodes, but this is also yours. Go to Cole Sportz, that's with a Z, On Instagram, the question of the day is waiting for you. And we talked about it earlier in the topic of the day. That is what the question of the day will surround itself with being. And also, the IGTV episode is going to surround itself with the topic of the day topic as well. But I'm going to talk about it in another way, in another angle, and in another slant. But if you want me to cover other issues, or if you have a comment, or if you have anything you want to get off your chest to me, you can reach me on Instagram at Cole Sportz with a Z, on Facebook at Cole Sportz with a Z, on Twitter at Cole_Sports with a Z, and online it's at ColeSportsWithAZ.com. And if you feel the need to write long form, you can comment below, or you can go to info at ColeSportsWithAZ.com. I'll be glad to read whatever you have, and I'll be glad to answer whatever question you may have. After all, I do this for you. That's all the time I have. Thank you so much for joining me as I represent the sportsman and sportswoman all around the world. That's you. I'm Cole Johnson, and this has been another episode of Cole Sportz on the visual and on the daily.